his points about how is Aaron being motivated. Not only did it motivate you because they drafted your heir apparent, which shows that they are already thinking you're not what you once were. It's also they didn't help you. They didn't give you any help to get better. Right? I mean, Devontae Adams said, hey, we expected him to draft a wide receiver. Of course they did, right? Everybody in the business thought that was going to happen. So now, not only did you draft my heir apparent, you didn't give me any help. Would Antonio Brown walking in help that roster? He would help any. It's just a matter of, can you get through the 8 weeks with Antonio Brown laying low, not doing anything off the field that would jeopardize it, but to think that he would walk in and make Green Bay a better team offensively, he absolutely would. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, how much pull do you really have? That's the problem. How much pull? They've shown you don't believe in you. Can you walk in the general manager and say, hey, man, I need this guy? Are they listening? Who knows? That's the question.
Jeff Darlington, we've heard Baltimore, as Lamar Jackson has come out and talked about Antonio Brown. We've considered Seattle. There were some comments from Pete Carroll the other day. We haven't heard Green Bay. What is your sense of all this?
Well, look, I mean, the egregious failure of the Green Bay Packers is not drafting Jordan Love. It's not adding a wide receiver after, by the way, losing Geronimo Allison and Jimmy Graham here. So, yes, there is an obvious need when it comes to adding a wide receiver. I can tell you certainly that Baltimore and Seattle are the two teams that have expressed the most interest both publicly and behind the scenes. That being said, it's going to take a really stable organization in terms of the coaching staff, and I'm not saying Matt LaFleur is not that. I think he's got a very bright future. Is he willing to take that on now remains a major question. I personally think that, yeah, the Packers should add Antonio Brown, but to date, they have not proven to have the desire to put these kinds of weapons around Aaron Rodgers, so I'll believe it when I see it.
So, Louis, let me come back to you. This is the way I feel I'd be the person running that organization, and that's something you know 1,000 times more about than I ever will. But if I've got Aaron Rodgers for 2 more years, I'm going to try and do everything I possibly can to try and win a championship while I have this all-time great talent. And again, Antonio Brown, we all understand it is a risk, but from that standpoint, it would feel to me like a risk worth taking. How would you view it from that standpoint?
Well, yeah, if that was my line of thinking, yeah, it would make sense. But see, I would kind of back up and say this. If we're going to do everything we can over the next 2 years to win another championship and maximize Aaron's talents before we move on down the road, then why didn't we do something before this? Why didn't we address this in the draft? Why didn't we get a young talent that could help us both now and later on? Which leads me to believe this. And, you know, Jeff, you know, and Jeff, both of you guys, I would say this. How much pull, when you ask the question, how much pull does Aaron have in the organization at this point in time? I don't know, because I think this, Brian Gutekunst, who's the general manager there, and Mark Murphy, who's the team president, they're the ones who have the pull. They're the ones who are pulling the strings and have the juice. They're not listening to what Aaron wants, because if they were, we wouldn't even be in this position where now we're talking about a player who unquestionably is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but is a guy who you can't trust. We wouldn't even be talking about it. But we're in this position because they aren't necessarily thinking the same way we're sitting here thinking, you know, on Get Up this morning. They're not thinking that way.
All right. We'll see if they wind up kicking the tires, if you will use that expression, on that. We'll talk more about this as we continue, but now I want to get to another veteran quarterback. A big revelation from BigBen Roethlisberger, who is back on the field. The Steelers quarterback revealing he's been dealing with elbow pain for years. He tore 3 flexor tendons in his right elbow last season. Roethlisberger saying he's now ready to return, and he has big goals.
I feel really good. I feel strong. I feel healthy. I feel young. If you can feel young at this age, any competitor will tell you they want to go out on their own terms, right? And it doesn't happen all the time. I'm not saying I've got 10 years left in me, but I definitely feel like I've got some really good years left in me. So I still want to win Lombardis, and I say that with a plural on the end.
He still wants to win Lombardis. And Jeff, Saturday, as I sit and I look at a Steeler team that had, and let's be kind, subpar quarterback play last season and still managed to go 8-8. If there had been 7 playoff teams last year, they would have been in the playoffs. And you add a Hall of Fame quarterback if he's healthy. What would you say the ceiling is for the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger?
Super Bowl contention. I mean, this is an 8-8 football team who has a defense that ranks number 1 in yards per play, takeaways, total QBR allowed, and sack. If you're not telling me a team like that has a chance in the playoffs and a chance to make some noise, you're absolutely crazy. And think about this. If Roethlisberger gets back to, let's say, 75% of what he was in 2018, which is arguably his best season ever, you're talking about he was a 5,000-yard passer back then. If you get even close to that, the numbers blow you away. And by the way, when they played the Ravens, the 14-2 team, Lamar, all the things, they took it away from him 3 times. So this team is equipped and loaded. Now, they have to run the ball better. They didn't do as well when Munchak left. They haven't done as well offensive line-wise last year, but they'll get back to that because you have the quarterback that can threaten on the outside instead of playing with guys like you and me, Greeny, at the quarterback position. So as you're looking at this, I'm fired up for the Steelers. This team has a real shot if Roethlisberger even gets back.
I think you're selling me short. You haven't seen me spin it Saturday. Louis Riddick, let me come to you. No one talks about the Steelers. No one. We're talking about Baltimore. We're talking about Kansas City. We're talking about what can New England be with Cam. No one is talking about the Steelers. Should we be?
Of course we should be, because this is a football team that has one of the best coaches in the National Football League, and Mike Tomlin, who is another guy who doesn't get enough credit. And we are talking about Big Ben, who is a proven bona fide winner. He's one of those guys who was considered the standard at one point in time in terms of how would you draw up the ideal quarterback. Remember, there were many people who said there's one quarterback you don't want to face in crunch time, and the guy who, when you need him the most, is Ben Roethlisberger. Here's the question, though, is, we keep saying, if healthy, if healthy, if healthy. And it's just not about Big Ben and if he is healthy. And he's coming back from a major injury to his throwing arm. But also, James Conner has to stay healthy. Juju Smith-Schuster has to stay healthy. These are people who they lost last year. They need guys like Chase Claypool, the wide receiver from Notre Dame, to come through. Deontay Johnson, they need him to come through. James Washington, you need to come through. Anthony McFarland Jr., who they drafted out of Maryland at running back to complement James Conner. These guys all have to come through. They've got it, I believe, locked down on the defensive side, but they need to come through offensively from a health and development perspective. And remember this, Baltimore is loaded. Kansas City is loaded. Tennessee was in the AFC Championship game last year, so they have got a minefield to navigate. I think they are without a doubt a wild card team if Big Ben stays on the field. Super Bowl luck, Super Bowl contenders, I'm not sure. But they got some questions to answer. But the AFC is tougher than people give the AFC credit for. But Big Ben, look, he's for real. I just hope he can last throughout the entire season.
Yeah, Darlington, let me pick up on something Louis just said about Mike Tomlin and the job he did last year. The Steelers last year ranked 31st in QBR, right? Second to last as far as their quarterback play. They went 8-8.
Right.
Washington finished one spot ahead of them at 30th. They went 3-13. So, I mean, you're talking about the Steelers managed to really do something with absolutely nothing. Now you throw a Hall of Fame quarterback into the mix. What do you make of it, Jeff Darlington?
Yep. Greeny, I would have felt more confident about the Steelers' chances if they had added, say, Jameis Winston or Cam Newton as their backup quarterback, because I understand that we're going to have optimism about Roethlisberger saying the things he's saying, but he's also saying there hasn't really been, he's in his comments, that a major quarterback that's gone through these torn flexor tendons. There's been 2, one of which was the other guy in the Steelers organization, in Terry Bradshaw. I realize it was a long time ago, and maybe medicine's come a long way, but elbow issues also played the end of his career. Joe Montana in 1991 had torn flexors in his elbow, reoccurring for 2 seasons after that. I can only hope that medicine has caught up to where these surgeries go better, but there is a history of quarterbacks dealing with these elbow injuries late in their careers. So if they had a backup quarterback that was maybe better suited, I'd be more confident. I'm just not that confident yet that Big Ben can make it through the season with this injury and stay completely healthy.
All right, it's a really important point, and I'm glad you made it here. We have a ton of football coming your way today, and the poll question for today is a good one. You can go to my Twitter page at ESPN Greeny and cast your vote. It's a simple question, but the answer's not so easy. These are 4 teams that missed the playoffs last year. Which of them are you most confident will make it this year? Brady's Bucks, Ben's Steelers, the Browns, or the Cowboys? Cast your vote at ESPN Greeny on Twitter. We will check in on what you think a little bit later in this program. Meanwhile, time now for our game of the night. And we go to the NBA bubble, and the superstars were out again. James Harden and the Rockets taking on Dame Lillard and the Blazers. Going to pick it up in the 4th. Good game. 8 minutes to go. Tied at 88. Damian Lillard. Oh, look at the move. How are you going to stop that? Blazers up 3. Dame would score 21. Little over 4 minutes to go now. Houston down a deuce. We're scrambling for a loose ball. Who's going to get it? Russell Westbrook taking it strong. Look at the effort by Westbrook to get to the hole. He would score 15. We're all tied at 100. Under 3 minutes to go. Game still tied at 100 apiece. Who's going to be the hero? How about Gary Trent Jr.? Open on the wing for 3. 16 points off the bench. Blazers take a 3-point lead. Over 2 minutes to go now. Rockets down 3. Westbrook. Harden.